responsive IT departments to do the job. Well, to understand more about why this happened and how to prevent similar outages in future, we can speak now to technology expert Paul Armstrong. Paul, are we to be encouraged by the fact that actually within 24 hours the problem seems largely resolved or not?
I think we should be, yes. Obviously, it would have been great if the problem didn't happen, and there are things that companies like CrowdStrike could have done to effectively minimize these. You know, it's been going for a number of years. This is the first time they've had a major one. But yeah, fixing it in 24 hours, it's taken a lot for them to do it.
And do we think that more technology would fix the problem or less? Is the problem a lack of human oversight, do you think?
I think it's probably multiple things. There are a few things you can do to sort of mitigate these sorts of things happening, and they're going to happen. It is the world we're sort of moving into, and to go backwards wouldn't be the smartest thing we could do right now because of fraud and everything like that. But the companies like CrowdStrike can effectively improve testing through phased rollout, so they don't roll out everything at once. You've got redundancy systems which can sort of help people should the worst happen before anything else, and just improving testing generally, so doing more before things go. They are fighting a tsunami of people trying to get into other people's computers. That's the problem. So they've got incredibly complex systems. They're always trying to update them. They have to update for a lot of people. The hackers only have to have a very small window to get through in order for systems to become vulnerable. And that's the big key here, is they're desperately trying to keep people out.
Well, this is what underlies all of this, is the politicization of security, isn't it? IT security in particular, and the risk of cyber attacks.
Yeah, that's what everyone's trying to sort of avoid, basically, you know, and they are one of the biggest companies out there. You know, this knocked about 21% of their share value off. It's had a major impact on them. They don't want more of these, and they haven't had them previously, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to get ones in future. And that's what everyone's worried about, is figuring out how do we stop hackers, you know, exploiting exploits that come up, and they will come up lots of different times. All we can do is have better mitigation systems should the worst happen.
And you've pointed to the possibility of a phased rollout. I mean, that in essence is the same idea as the technology not really being centred so much on one company, because that was the problem, the amount of the market that CrowdStrike had access to or was controlling.
Yeah, it's what a lot of companies, what a lot of organisations...
CrowdStrike, sorry, I said CrowdStrike. My slip of the tongue.
What a lot of organisations and governments have issues with at the moment is just how big certain companies are and how much impact they can have. So when you have a single point of failure that we saw over the last 36 hours, you sort of realise, wow, that is a lot of people that can be updated quickly. Instead of perhaps the big 5 or big 7, maybe we need the big 10 or 15, and that's the sort of world that we might sort of move into if certain governments get their way with regulation and these big companies.
Because we were hearing earlier how China was largely unaffected by this particular IT outage.
Yes, don't think they're big users of CrowdStrike. They have internal sort of companies that they use for cybersecurity, so it wouldn't affect so many. Also, Microsoft is not massive in China. They have other internal companies and systems that they use as well. So, you know, it's not that they do that for that reason. It's just that Microsoft hasn't penetrated that market as much yet.
And in terms of how companies should respond, is this a cue to bolster the IT teams or make everybody more capable?
I think a bit of both, really. If you can afford to bolster an IT team, obviously that's a very smart thing to do. There's lots of things you can do with that. Making everybody aware about cybersecurity and you know, the human impacts of that. You know, clicking on links is the biggest way that hackers get into systems through phishing and stuff like that. That's the biggest area. This was not a malicious attack. You know, that's the key to sort of remember here. This was a bad bit of code that got pushed out. Both are incredibly impactful. One is usually easier to fix, the one that we had yesterday. So that's just something to remember as well, is making sure that people are always trained and retrained and kept up to date.
Thank you very much indeed. Sage advice.